I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm welcoming Pal Ulvik Rokseth from the three-part Peacock miniseries prequel, The Continental from the World of John Wick, to our TV cinematographers Meet the Experts panel. Paul, one look at The Continental, and it's clear this is a far different project than the John Wick film starring Keanu Reeves. Were you a fan of the movies before you got hired for this?
Well, I certainly I'd seen the first one, and I was kind of amazed about all the fighting sequences. I'm a little bit not so fan of fighting in general, but they did it in a way which was new and unique, and I guess it was also a good way for us and me and Albert to kind of distinguish a little bit from that series. But obviously, it's a franchise, so we had to go in and dig into it, obviously. But of course, always a fan of Keanu Reeves.
You were able to capture that distinctively grimy and decrepit look of New York City back in the 1970s. And I remember that, when this takes place, the trash filled streets and the steam coming from the sewers and the graffiti everywhere. If your marching orders were to showcase the nastiness of that, mission accomplished. Seems very, very, very realistic what you captured.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think I did dig into it quite a lot because again, we wanted to create this a little bit different approach on the whole. New York. Obviously, it's very based on how it was, as you say. Like I remember reading an article about the smog pollution in New York in the '70s, and it was one of the most highest death rate. So, and also the garbage strike was integrated into this, universe. So it just became this, we were trying to make it a little bit real. And if you do look on imagery from that time and era in New York, it was nasty, it was gritty, and as you say, we wanted to capture that a little bit. Um, and also it being nighttime, like it was difficult to not make a dark universe when it was presented as night 1, 2, and 3 in the script as we got presented. So it's just really fun, really making that era in time because it's very visual, beautiful in New York, ugly but beautiful.
It is beautiful in its own way. It all comes across as so dirty and messy and shadowy. I mean, you feel like you need a shower after watching each episode, which is a tribute, I think, in part to your cinematography skills, because that's exactly what you were going for. Plus, I feel like I've stayed in hotels like this before, so it gave me a little sense of deja vu. No, not really. I've never stayed in an assassin hotel, thank God. Uh, it almost looks like you were talking about. I know you were shooting at night, Paul, but it almost looks like you used a dark filter over the lens while shooting this. Uh,
No, but I'm from Norway, which is a very dark country, so I guess I'm just used to that darkness. But no, well, you know, I didn't want to, obviously the Wick movies, um, in its greatness, have really achieved this modern style look. It's been high, it's like neons, it's high contrast, it's glossy. It's a very modern kind of style, which they portray very good. But we also wanted, the this series to like what happens when if in the '70s you had that as an origin and it evolved into the Wick films as we know today. How would that look? So we based a lot of the lighting at the time just with tungsten lights, basically just glowing bulb. That was the approach. Like that's the base night light, right? And then we had to complement that with some ambient light for this huge set that we built in Budapest as well. Um, that was also quite a challenge because I've never worked with that big lights before. So like it's big hanging overhead lights. You have to scroll to American Cinematographer and see how they do it in the big movies. So just like that looks good, and then and you start to kind of evolve the lighting schemes based upon like how that ambient was. So yeah.
well, you really great use of the lighting to evoke that corrupt and dangerous mood. Um, and I know you don't like violence, as you said, but the action here is so quick and mega intense. Was that a big challenge to capture all of that? I mean, especially I remember the first installment, the first big action sequence. It just left me dizzy.
Yeah, I guess yes. It's difficult to, it's very violent. That's but it has to be because that's the character we're portraying. He's I guess you know a previous John Wick at some point. Like but I would say like the what we our Albert Hughes, our director, he really wanted to explore shooting some of the fight sequences fairly wide, like, so we didn't want, or in some of the scenes, it's difficult to hide punches and doing all that extra work to get it in one take, or you have to do wide lenses, not like chop it up too much. But obviously that stair sequence is very slim, but like still these 8711 guys, they're amazing at fighting, and they get up with this all this difficult blockings with the actors, right? So it's almost like the operator, like, or I got this great friend of mine from Norway that shot Andreas, that shot for that second unit we had for some of the action sequences. So they really, because of time, obviously we couldn't do everything together. But he was, amazing just to be able to follow those characters, and it's quite fast pace, I would say.
Oh, very, very. Uh, what you're depicting here also, I think, Paul, is it's an origin story of the franchise, but it's really a story of New York City too. I love how much harsher and grittier the photography is than much of the more kind of streamlined and stylish films. But it really pays tribute to like Scorsese movies, I think too, like Mean Streets and Taxi Driver. Did you have that in mind while you were shooting this?
Yeah, obviously, I guess that's almost something that really catch my eye when I got the script and I read it, was like, to be able to even be making a movie in 1970s in New York is like, there's so much good inspiration. And also me and Albert, we were watching in our prep, which I was really enjoying because we had a really great time together. We were watching movies. He just puts on the Criterion channel and put on the noir section, and we watched. It goes without the sound in the background, and we sit and we discuss. And suddenly, like 20 minutes has passed, and we have seen like the start of Taxi Driver, and then obviously all these other flamboyant and crazy movies during the era. And you pick up stuff, and of course, it's big inspiration during that era, right?
Now you worked with Albert Hughes, as you just said, and Charlotte Bronstrom as well, the other director on the Continental. How did their shooting approaches differ at all?
Well, Albert has a really, his approach is, he usually he makes this great style guide in very big detail of how how he wants the camera to operate, like it's instructions for operators, for sound recorders, for editing. Everything is in this big document, and he's very detailed about it, which is fantastic to read and so inspirational. So, but in another way, he's also a really good collaborator. So he gives freedom to people around him to evolve and try out new stuff, um, and just collaborate on how to tell that story that he's very particular about in some degree. But so we kind of planned a lot, but also I think Albert wanted to explore a little bit more of the exploration on set, basically. So he wanted us to be a little bit free, which we did. But I think also he really also continued more in episode 3, that he wanted to be more it's a little bit more obviously flamboyant and a bit more crazy because it's like the big boom. But Charlotte is probably a little bit different. She obviously took over a certain style guide and a certain style that we had to kind of continue. But her, she was fantastic to work with on set, because also we had much more of an intuition together, and we had much more blocking, and then we took what we learned from episode 1 into the 2 and continued and evolved that into a little bit more character driven, I guess. It's that mid episode.
Mm-hmm. Before we wrap, I just wanted to ask you about photographing an international superstar like Mel Gibson. who plays such an awful guy in the show. But that had to be quite a thrilling experience.
Yeah, he's done some good movies, like he's directed a lot of movies, and he has, uh, like strictly, on set, he was, I was kind of amazed that he was so interested in everything we did, because he just came, some of, actors come and go on set, but he just stayed on set all the day. So he didn't go off. He was just hanging out and looking, and, I think he's genuinely interested in film. So it was also, fantastic to see his interest in the craft, because he's obviously have a lot of experience.
Absolutely. With that, we're out of time. Paul, good luck to you this coming award season. The Continental from the World of John Wick is currently streaming its 3 installments on Peacock. Thanks for joining us at Gold Derby.
Thank you.